So give me one moment, please. So my name is Aga Mbianda. Welcome everyone to this break and break session. I'm here with Anne Rose, who is my teammate, Nancy, Tess, and I hope some of them will join later. So break and break is a space where we usually discuss some of the topic of interest and find possible solutions together. We usually hold our meetings on the last Wednesday of the month between 12 p.m. and 1 p.m. And before we start, I would like us to just share something good or something new in our life since the last month. Anyone can start.
I can start.
Okay, Anna Rose.
My aunt who lives in France, who I haven't seen in like 5 years, came to visit. I got to spend time with her this weekend. She's doing a book tour. So yeah, I got to spend time with her, and I'm going to her like a reading of her book tonight in Bethesda. So I'm excited for that.
Very nice. Thank you for sharing. Anyone else? Yesterday was my mom's birthday and she turns 75. So it's she's living in Cameroon, so it was so difficult to see her physically, but we had like a group call, FaceTime, and we talk about everything. The time that she was shouting on us to go and do things. It was so good to think about all those moments, and we were very grateful to God to keep her safe until today. Yeah. Marlene, you wanted to share your own new or good thing?
The good thing, thank you. My name is Marlene Orantes, and I'm representing here expanding food and nutrition education program at the University of Maryland. I'm so happy that my mom is coming next month from my country, and this is a great news for me. And also in our office and our program, we have so many transition, and I have many others assignment that I have, and I'm very happy because it's like a training for me. It's a little challenging, but at the same time, I can do that, and I will show everybody to see how is my leadership. So I'm so happy for that. It's new for me. It's
very excited.
It's a little challenge, but I can do because I can see every morning the mercies of our God. I'm a Christian, so I can see many blessings every single day. Yeah. God has many purpose for every one of us.
Thank you, Marlene. Very excited. Thanks. Yeah. Anyone else would like to go? Yes, Catherine.
Well, everyone has these momentous events. And I just, I fixed dinner last night for my next door neighbors, and then I took it over there and we had dinner together.
Wow.
And it was just a very special evening, even though we see each other all the time. And I made short ribs, but I bought them at Costco, and they were butchered differently than I expected. So I was very nervous that what I was making wasn't going to turn out right. And it was great. So, there's always that. But so there's little things, everyday things, having a meal with somebody that can be very special.
Exactly.
I'm excited for all the three things that you all mentioned. They all sound, particularly when you talk about a mom, because I'm a mom. So anyway.
Thank you so much, Catherine, for sharing that. I know that when you share something with someone, even I have the feeling that if I cook a very good meal and I don't share it with someone, I will not have that feeling of happiness. So I have to share it with someone in order to know that, to be happy, because that person will also be aware of the fact that I'm here. I know how to cook. That person can taste my own food from my culture, something like that. So it's always good to share, to learn, share, and yeah, that is life. Anyone else? Okay. So as you may know, May is the mental health month. And for that reason, we thought that it will be good to see what is the connection between food security or food insecurity and mental health. And my point today is that, do we have any connection between both? We would like to hear from you what is the relationship between food insecurity and mental health. And in the second part of our discussion, I would like to hear from us what are the kind of actions that we can take to help our neighbors, both physically and mentally, because we know that when someone is hungry, that person has, physically, that person is not doing well. And maybe mentally that person is also not doing well. So how can we provide both services to our neighbors, to our friends in the community? So first of all, I would like to hear from you if there is no any relationship between food insecurity and mental health. Yes, Rona.
There's definitely a relationship.
Mhm.
People, I've been working on this for a few years. I'm a member of the Food Security Advisory Board, and I've been involved with disability advocacy and mental health. There's a lot of research that shows people with mental health challenges are not eating well, they have food insecurity, nutrition problems. So it's both cause and effect. If you don't eat well, if you don't have food security, it can make you sick, make you depressed, make you worse, your condition worse. So it's both a cause and effect. And there is research. If you Google that topic, you'll see scientific research.
Exactly.
With that being said, I learned a few years ago that people who receive food stamps, which is called SNAP, is everyone familiar with SNAP? It's, Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. It's a federal government program that provides people with low income with food stamps. They have a card that they can use to go to the store and get food. Anyway, I learned a few years ago that you cannot get cooked food with your SNAP benefits. In fact, I'm going to show you. If you can see me, my nickname is the Rotisserie Chicken Lady, because I've been advocating for a change in the law so people with food stamps can get cooked food. The reason is there are many people with mental health problems, and I know very well because someone in my family has that diagnosis. And if you're depressed, if you're mentally ill, you may not be able to cook because you can't get out of bed. One reason, you're too depressed. You may not have the cooking facilities. For example, a person with mental illness may be renting a room that that doesn't have a kitchen, rent, low housing is tied in with this. So a person with a mental health challenge may not have a kitchen to cook in, and they're not getting good nutrition if they just eat junk food or go to fast food. Another person I know with a mental health issue, with a serious mental illness, actually, was homeless and living in a motel room using his Social Security disability income to stay in a motel, and couldn't cook, didn't have money to eat nutritious food. It was a serious problem. So I've been working on trying to get this law changed so people, not just mentally ill people or physically ill people, like if you're physically disabled, you can't you can't go to the grocery store and get raw chickens and cut up if you have arthritis in your hand. So I'm extending the mental health issue and food security to all people with disabilities, physical, mental, seniors, developmental disabilities. Anyway, it's a very serious issue that I'm working on, and I wanted to share with this group, there is a bill that has been sponsored by a congressman in Chicago, and it's called HR 6338. The name of the bill is SNAP Plus. And this bill is coming up because the US Department of Agriculture is renewing the SNAP program next year. So this is the time to support the passing of that bill so people with mental health issues and low income, many people with mental illness have very low income or no income, and they get the SNAP. So, oh, is that Charmaine from my group? Hi, Charmaine. I just saw your name come up. Anyway, this is a big, important issue, and I will put my email and phone number in the chat. So if anyone wants to work with me on this, it's a work in progress. And in answer to your original question, yes, poor nutrition is very related to mental illness, and mental illness can be very related to poor nutrition because of the SNAP benefit. Okay.
Thank you so much, Rona.
Yeah. Okay. I'm going to put my name in the chat. So.
Okay. Before you, Marlene, we have a question on the chat box. Someone is asking Rona if that exclusion is also applied to WIC. You know, yeah.
I don't think so. That's a good question, though. WIC is for women, infants, and children. Mm-hmm. And they get, but it's not exactly SNAP. I don't think it's the same. WIC is different than SNAP, but it's a good question. And I'm not involved with the WIC. I'm only involved with the SNAP. But thank you for asking that.
Thank you so much, Rona. Mm-hmm. So Marlene?
Thank you. This is a great conversation, and is, of course, mental health and food insecurity is interconnected, for sure. If you don't have food to eat, your brain will be down, for sure. And then we have a lot to say about this, because if you know, in this moment, at this time here in the US, we have food insecurity for everywhere. And then it's something that we need to work together, not just educating people, but at the same time, provide all the resources. Why? Because it's not just one person that, for example, can be pregnant woman, can be a youth, can be adult, can be anyone's, any age. We are suffering right now. And of course, if you don't have any good food, if you don't have any food, your brain will suffer the consequence. And we will have many disorders. And then mental health is an important part of overall health and well-being. Mental health include emotional, psychological, social well-being, and it affect with it affect how we think, how we feel, or actions. So it's very important. And then, as I said, we need to work together as a community, and not just educating, but also provide resources.
Exactly. That is a very good point, because as you said, mental health affects all the parts of our body, right? So if you are not feeling well, then you will not be able to walk, you will not be able to serve people, you will not be able to at least listen to people. So it's like you said, it's not just one organization who will go out and help people about that. It's a kind of collective commitment. So
Commitment, yes.
yeah, and when Rona was talking, she mentioned housing, she mentioned other issues. It's not just food. If you provide only food, then people will have another problem. If you provide only housing, then maybe people will have the house but not having something to eat. So we need to see how we can come together and help our community with all the resources that we have available. Anyone else would like to? Yes, Monica.
I think it's important to think about persons as an integrity. The persons are not separate compartments or individual compartments. The person is an integration of everything. So we can't think about health without mental health. So the person is a holistic issue. So I think this includes different avenues. I can think about mental health with a people who doesn't have the primary necessity covered. So how we can think about mental health when the people doesn't have enough to eat. So how can I think about the possibility to eat from a person who doesn't have a good mental health? So I think it's the different avenues that are connected everything. I think about when we are running our programs, we are thinking about the person as an integrity, as all a package, a whole package, not as food or mental health or health or physical health. So I think it's important to think always about a person like a whole package, so we can address all the necessities. We have to be very sensitive to all the necessities of the people.
Thank you so much, Monica. It's a very good point, because we have to see people or work with people in the holistic way, so that we try to fit all the needs, not only one part of the problem. We have to solve all the problem. If we don't do that, people will remain the same. So if someone come to us and say, I have a problem of housing or a problem of food, and you provide the food, you are not solving all the problems. So yeah, I understand what you mean.
I want to add, sorry, that's why it's important to work as a team. because all the resources has to be connected. All of us has to be connected.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, I think it's very important to work as a team and collaborate with other partners. And we usually do it at Manna because we have things like pop-up pantries where we partner with other organizations. For example, this afternoon we have a pop-up pantry with the Black Physician and Healthcare Network. So they are doing something else when we are doing food distribution. So it's just a way that we can help our community have access to the resources that we have. And if we don't partner with other organizations, then we will not solve the problem. We have to collaborate in order to help our community have access to everything that we have in the county. Yes, Rona.
I don't know if people are aware, but because of the pandemic, the federal government increased the amount of food stamps, the financial benefit. It used to be like $30 a month, which I don't know how anyone could feed themselves on $30 a month without Manna food bank. But during the pandemic, the federal government provided an emergency allotment. So I'm not ashamed to tell you, I'm a food stamp recipient. I'm on SNAP because due to some unfortunate circumstances, I have a poverty income and I'm eligible for SNAP. And now I'm getting $230 a month. But that the government is threatening to take away the emergency allotment. So all SNAP recipients will go back to the $30 or $40 a month, which you can't feed yourself on that. Anyway, the reason I'm bringing this up is we may just have one more month. You need to contact your federal legislators on behalf of all the people, low-income people, mental health, physical health, anyone that's a SNAP recipient was not, all right, the way that I've explained it, and I've been writing to the federal, my senators and my congressmen, my income didn't change because of the pandemic. I'm on Social Security income as a senior. So it's not like I'm going to go back to work and have a normal income. That's my income. And any disabled person that's on Social Security disability income, that's their income. They're not going to go back to work when the pandemic allows people to get jobs or go back to work. Anyway, it's a critical issue. In fact, Charmaine, one of my colleagues, she's on this meeting, and we were emailing.
Just left. Oh,
we
no,
were,
she's
yeah,
there.
we were emailing about this just a day ago. And we wrote letters to you've got to know how to contact legislators because they will make these decisions. And we cannot eat with $30 a month. It means we're going to rely on Manna, food banks, churches, other sources of food. But the government should keep that emergency allotment, in my opinion. So I'm really passionate about this, as you can tell. Anyway, many people with mental health issues are living in poverty. They're underemployed, and because they have mental illness. They might be very smart, but they can't hold a job based on their intelligence because they have mental illness.
Yeah.
So we have to fight for their rights by telling our legislators, don't do this to people. We need to eat. There's another program people may not know about, and this affects mental illness also. The Restaurant Meals Program, RMP, the law was passed in our state of Maryland. It allows people to, on low-income people, many of whom are mentally ill, to go to a restaurant and use their SNAP benefits to get a meal in a restaurant. Okay, the law was passed, but it has not been implemented in Montgomery County. It's not happening. So we're working on that. Charmaine knows about this because she's on our Food Security Advisory Board with Montgomery County. It's not happening. Restaurants just have not done it. And if you have a mental illness and you can't cook, you can't organize yourself, you're depressed, you're how it depends on the severity of the mental illness, but you may not be able to organize yourself, but you need to eat. So to go to a restaurant and get a meal in a restaurant would be wonderful for people with mental illness.
Exactly.
So we need to work on that too. It's called the Restaurant Meals Program. Anyway, we can make change.
We can make change. That's true. So I think advocacy is one of the very important point when we are working, because we have to raise our voices on behalf of those who cannot say anything. Because those people who are facing mental health or mental challenges cannot say anything. But we have the power to bring these issues into our elected official and tell them that you need to do something for those people. So I agree that advocacy is one of the most important point when we are in food security. Anyone else would like to add something before we switch into the second part? So there is a question on the chat box. In the chat box, why hasn't the RMP been implemented here in the county? Do you know why it's not yet implemented, Rona?
Yes, I do, because I've been working on it. There are some barriers or disincentives for restaurants. I'll give you an example. In order to have the restaurant meal plan in your restaurant, you have to have a special piece of equipment. You know, like when we go to a restaurant and we use a credit card and we swipe our credit card or put the credit card in the machine. Well, people that have an EBT card, which is the SNAP benefit card, they need to use a separate piece of equipment and it's expensive. So the restaurants don't want to bother buying that equipment. We have to advocate for that. Anyway, we're working on it, but they don't want to buy the equipment. There's also another stipulation that says they have to have a special menu at the restaurant for people in the RMP, or if the restaurant has the restaurant meals plan, they have to have a special menu. So it's a less expensive that someone could buy. So that's a disincentive for restaurants. So it hasn't been launched. So another thing we can do in Montgomery County is contact our local legislators, because that is a local issue. The law was passed. It's not through Annapolis and the state legislator. It's the Montgomery County Council. So if you contact those people, ask them, what are you doing to launch the restaurant meals program in Montgomery County. It's really important, especially for low-income people with mental health issues.
Yeah.
So anyway.
Thank you, Rona, for sharing that. It's a good answer. So we can move forward with the second question. The question is, how do you think we can contribute to both food security and mental wellness of our neighbors, of our community members? Because we already noticed that there is an interconnection between mental health and food insecurity. We are doing a lot in our community, and we also hear from people here that we have to work together collaboratively in order to help our community members. In that case, what are some of the actions that we can take to help them mentally and physically?
I hate to dominate this, but because I've been really active in this, when I first became a person living in poverty, I went to Manna regularly for food, and I was appalled at the quality of the food I got and what was being distributed to poor people, low-income people, many of whom were minorities, racial, ethnic, but, you know, and I would come home with food I wouldn't eat. It was poor quality food that I wouldn't eat. So food, the government actually is now calling it, rather than food insecurity, nutrition insecurity. And our group, our Montgomery County Council, brought this to the attention of Manna, and Manna started offering a food pantry, like a store where you could go in, and that's where I go. Not all of the Manna distribution centers have that, but I go to Columbia because it looks like a grocery store, and I can pick fresh produce, fresh food, not just high sugar, high carbohydrate. You know, the original Manna distribution was cakes, cookies, candies, lots of rice, lots of pasta, a lot of carbs, and no fresh produce and no fresh food at all. Canned goods, high in sodium, high, you know, anyway, not nutritious food. So what we can do, what Manna can do, is work on getting the pantry style distribution everywhere. You know, I live in Gaithersburg, and I have to drive an hour to Columbia on the highway to go to the Manna food bank that has a pantry. Does this make sense to the other people? Because I might be the only one that's experienced the low income. You know, I don't know if other people in this group know what that's like to have to go to a food bank to get your food, and it's not food you would eat because it's not nutritious food. It's very bad for your physical and mental health to eat canned and sweets and so forth. Anyway.
Thank you, Ronald, for sharing that. But I don't know when you visited our Manna's market, but we have many options. We have our market choice here at Old Columbia Pike and in Silver Spring, where people can make their own choice, like a grocery store. You go there, you pick whatever you want to pick. We also have our food, how do we call it? Pop-up pantries, where we can go into the community with food and people can just get them from where they are. So we meet people where they are. We have a small program called Food Voucher, where we try to help people with their culturally appropriate food. So we partner with stores, they get the coupons, they go there, they can pick whatever they want to pick. And before that, we work with the community to list on the voucher what kind of food they would like to pick from those stores. So let's say we are working with the Ethiopian community. We work with the people there. They write on the paper what they would like to receive in a certain amount of within the certain amount of money that we have for that coupon. So it gives them the time to go there at their convenient time within the month. They go there when they want. They can also pick whatever. They can break down everything that we listed on the coupons and get whatever they want to get. So we have those options right now, and we also offer deliveries for people who cannot drive, and for seniors, for example, they can just stay at home and we deliver the food for them. For those who have a problem of cars, they don't have vehicle, they cannot drive, we can also help them when they arrive on site and pay the ride back to their home. So we have many options right now, because we know that many people are facing a lot of issues, transportation issues, yeah. And the fact that we allow people to make their choice is also very important. Because as you said, many times you receive food, you go back home and you don't eat that food. It's not fair. So we at Manna, we are trying to see how we can help people to get exactly what they eat. Anyone else would like to share something about how we can? Yes, Catherine.
Well, I want to note one thing, and which is I've been familiar with Manna probably since my kids were playing soccer, and they're in their mid-30s, so maybe close to 30 years. And I have seen an evolution in the outreach to donors, food donors, about trying to focus on receiving as donations certain foods that have more nutritional value. And so I think there is an evolution over time, number one, and number two, to the extent that we can continue that, unless, I mean, I'm assuming it has some success because the food collections, you know, I'm aware of, like at Temple Bethany, there is a list given, or if you, when there are food collections at a grocery store. So that's my comment. And a shout out to Manna for trying to address the nutrition shortage. The other thing that I'd like to suggest, and whether I actually, when I was at the Heroes for Hunger event, in the parking garage at the parking ticket machine, afterward, I spoke to a woman who looked familiar to me, and it turned out, I don't remember her name now, she's the executive director of Every Mind. And it would be, which is used to be called the Montgomery County Mental Health Association. And I had a very interesting conversation with her, not long, but perhaps we would all benefit if we could invite someone from that group or another mental health group to participate in these discussions. I mean, I think we're having a very good discussion, but you know, where there's a connection or an interface between two groups, it would be beneficial, I think, to have a representative of that other group. So that's
Yeah.
my suggestion.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's not going to instantly solve any of the issues that Rona has identified, but just so we're thinking more broadly.
Exactly.
Or
okay. Yeah. Maybe the next time. Thank you. Anyone else would like to share about what kind of action we can take to help our community physically and mentally? Yes, Jennifer.
Hi. So I have kind of a couple thoughts, and hopefully it all makes sense. But throughout this discussion, I was thinking of different population groups.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing that unfortunately can tie together food insecurity and mental illness is the stigma. But that stigma might show up differently in different groups. So, for example, I just finished my college career for now, and it's much more normalized to talk about mental health as a college student. Maybe food insecurity, not so much, but I've seen a change in that with kind of acknowledging students in need and things like that, at least at University of Maryland.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one group. And then another different link, also kind of tying into a need for healthcare services, could be new moms. So like postpartum depression, still a stigma around that too. But especially if you have a food and nutrition need as well, you would have potentially a lot of barriers to getting access to either of those services, especially if you're lower income and maybe you have Medicaid for a limited time after you have your child. But then finding a provider, an appropriate provider for your mental health needs, is another challenge, like finding an appropriate provider for your nutrition needs. So there's kind of an example of some of those different groups. And I think one way to address the stigma that wouldn't really be immediate, but hopefully it could help over time, is if it were more addressed in schools at an earlier age.
Mm-hmm.
For example, whenever I had health class in school, I don't remember mental health being a big thing. We didn't really talk about food security either. So just to kind of make it something that you can talk about at school, that kids can see is not if something real and relevant and like in their families and their communities.
Yeah.
And maybe another, I think somebody who was on the call earlier, was she the expanded food nutrition education program through the extension? That could be one way to do kind of the outreach around the stigma and normalizing mental health and linking people to resources for that.
Mm-hmm.
So that was just kind of a few different things there I thought I'd put out there.
Thank you. Very important. Anyone else? Yeah. So I think I would go back and maybe recall everything that we mentioned here. Yes, we agree here that there is an interconnection between food insecurity and mental health. And we say that it's a kind of cause and effect. So if someone is hungry, then that person can have a problem of stress or anxiety, etc. And if you have a mental challenge, you can also have problem to have access to food. So it both sides. And we also mentioned that Rona was talking about advocacy. We need to advocate on SNAP and also on the fact that sometimes they pass the bill but they don't implement it. We have to be there to talk our local elected officials so that they make sure that all those bills that they passed are implemented. So we also mentioned that we have to work in partnership in order to help our neighbors. So not just if we are food providers, we are not just focusing on food. We can also partner with another group who is working on something else like housing to see how we can help our community members. And what you just mentioned, Jennifer, about stigma, etc. How do we make it those kind of issues familiar to people at the early stage? So if we start talking to people in the to our kid in the school, then they will be aware of the fact that those things exist and we normalize them. Because the issue is that sometimes people who have mental challenges, sometimes there is a lot of stigma because they cannot easily ask for help, and people are looking for them with a kind of, yeah, they seem to be marginalized. So we have to normalize all those things and make sure that we offer the necessary service to people. And if we see people, we see individual in the way that we can help with every other things, not just what we provide in our organization, that in that way we can help people. Let's say we are aware about SNAP. How do we connect people in the community with SNAP? We have the information. We have to share that information with them and let them understand that you can have access to this resource here. This is the phone number that you can call to have access to this. This is where you can have access to healthcare and or mental health care, things like that. We have to be aware of everything that we have in the community and connect people to those resources. Luisa, you want to say something?
Yeah, I would also add that I feel like sometimes it's hard, like for the individual even to recognize that what they're going through might be a mental health issue. So it's not always easy to recognize like that you might have anxiety or that what you're going through is actually depression or something like that. So I think like the first step of just like being able to recognize a mental health issue can also be difficult for people because there isn't kind of like the general awareness that like worrying all the time, it can be categorized as a, you know, as anxiety, and like there's no name for it. It's kind of like a nameless condition that people go through on their own, and it shouldn't be that way.
That's true. Yeah. Any other thoughts? Do you think organizations who are providing food assistance, for example, how can they assist people and collaborate with mental health groups to make sure that people who are coming, for example, to pick up the food here can also have access to mental care? Is it possible to do something like that? Combine services?
I would think so, definitely. I think that would be a great thing to do. Just have someone, you know, maybe once a week, talk to people about what it's like, what it looks like when they pick up food or something like that. I think that's a great idea.
Okay.
I think that's where having a liaison with somebody like From Every Mind involved in these discussions could be very fruitful.
Exactly.
So, you know, I mean, there are probably many ways to design it, but there is such a shortage right now of mental health providers. And so before, you know, you design something, we sort of need to figure out, or one needs to figure out, how are you going to supply the help that you identify as needed? So, and I think that's one thing that, I can't think of her name, but I know Jackie knows. She's part of the Food Insecurity Board. I think that's why she was at the Food for All. But
yeah, and Jennifer just mentioned in the chat box that it may not work for all clients, but providing resources for telehealth, mental health care could be an option. That's true, because physically, sometimes with stigma, you have to be very, very careful. If you invite someone in the distribution site and that person, we have to find a way that we can talk to people without calling the attention of other people, because we know how mental health is not in our everyday language. So we need to make sure that we do it properly so that we don't hurt people, because bringing that kind of issue into what we are doing, we need to be careful. Yeah, pay attention, because sometimes we bring those things and you hurt people more than you help them. So we have to make sure that we are doing it properly. We have to make sure that we respect people's view or people's privacy. Yeah.
Well, and I think when you have someone who works in the mental health community,
they understand.
Those are not unfamiliar issues of how to approach clients, how to maintain the integrity of the individual. And so that's, I mean, I don't know what you have planned for other breaking bread sessions, but I think this has been a very robust discussion with lots of ideas, and it's clear there's some kind of there's enough to talk about, and maybe that's another session for us with someone from an appropriate organization that could. I mean, I think we all, maybe mental health services consumers, we all have our own ideas, but I would not myself purport to be able to say how we should do something other than we ought to do it mindfully.
Yeah, that's right, Catherine, because it's very technical, right? We can just mention what we mentioned here, but people who are working on that field know very well how they can come up with some solutions. But maybe in the future, we can invite someone to come and talk about those kind of issues. So I don't want to take your time. It's we have 2 minutes left. I would like to take that minute to say thank you for all of you, to Rona, Catherine, Jennifer, Chairman, Nancy, Luisa, Yolanda, Paula, for coming. I'm glad you were able to make it. It's just like this that we can come up with solutions. Everything starts with conversation. We are not an expert. We try to discuss, to explore what are the things that we can do, small things. And honestly, I'm very happy that you were able to join the meeting today. So I would like to thank you all and say good end of the day for each of you. And I would see you next week, the last Wednesday of the week, of the month. Thank you so much for coming. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Agar. Bye.
Bye. Bye, Rona.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
I have your contact on the chat box.
Yes.
Yeah, I will reach out to you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
You made the discussion very, very well. It's not easy. We are trying to be in the topic, but we need people like you, because you have the experience of SNAP, to share that experience.
And right, and that's why we have the Food Security Advisory Board. I posted it, and it's a volunteer group. So anyone that wants to do more
can join,
can be a volunteer. We have about, I don't know, maybe 20 people, or 16, I think, is on the group
Wow.
email. 16 people, and we addressed. I've been on this group, and Charmaine also. We were on this group since it started. We brought up transportation issues and all the things that you're talking about, the nutrition. We started talking about that. And now each of our volunteers has an advocacy plan. And when I first got on the board, I was called the champion for mental health because I was working on that passionately.
Yeah.
Okay. I wanted to tell you, I didn't have the address and phone number, but NAMI, National Alliance for Mental Illness,
Yeah.
we have a Montgomery County office. All services are free, support groups, so many different things. I was an outreach volunteer for them. So I've been there, done that. when a mental health clinic does their intake, there's a question on the form. Do you have a problem with food? Are you having a problem getting nutrition, food? It's a question that they ask, the social workers ask. So if someone goes for mental health treatment, they're asked that.
Yeah.
And then I don't know what they do to follow up, but maybe help them.
Yeah, but at least they have the feedback.
Yes, and they know if a person with mental illness says, I do have a problem with food, then maybe they help them fill out the forms so they get SNAP, or tell them about Manna.
Yeah.
How does Manna let people know about it? How do people know that there's a food bank that they can go to?
So we have many ways. For example, me as the community engagement manager, I'm working with 8 community-based organizations. So 4 of them are doing the outreach work and connect people with our services. We have flyers that we distribute every time. And I also have pop-up pantries that I conduct in the community and have direct interactions with people. I talk to about our service. I share our 7 distribution sites so that people can be aware. I share our phone number where people can call when they need food. And I also share a flyer where they have all the information about how we work. So we have many ways, and those who are already in our system, they can come here. They got flyer. We also text them. We send text messages through to everyone who is already in our program, and we use community event to also talk about what we are doing here. So we have a lot of.
I want to learn more about the vouchers and coupons and things that you do. I didn't know about that.
Give me one moment. I just want to take my charger. I will be back. One moment, so that I share with you what our food voucher is.